You ever had someone steal from you right under your nose? Not money, not food, but straight electricity? That's what I was dealing with. Every night, my system was acting strange, power draining like a leech was sucking on the line. At first, I thought it was a glitch, maybe a bad battery cell, maybe even my inverter failing. But no, what I discovered later made my blood boil because it wasn't a glitch, it was theft. Someone was plugging their luxury Tesla into my solar grid, running up my costs, draining my backup power, and thinking I wouldn't notice. But here's the twist that makes it worse. It wasn't some random neighbor sneaking around at night. It was an HOA cop, the same guy who strutted around the neighborhood in his knockoff tactical vest, barking fake authority, enforcing rules no one voted on. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. At first, the signs were subtle. My lights would flicker, the battery bank would empty faster than normal, and my monthly bill actually started climbing when it should have been going down. I paid for those panels, I wired that system, and I knew every amp that was supposed to flow in and out. So when the numbers didn't add up, I got suspicious. I decided to keep watch. One night I cracked the blinds, coffee in hand, waiting. Hours passed. Then, right after midnight, a shadow crept across my driveway, and there he was, the HOA cop himself. Not in a patrol car, not with a clipboard, but with a fat orange Tesla charging cable dragging behind him. He walked right up to my outlet like he owned the place, plugged in, and leaned back against his shiny car while my power flowed straight into his battery. That's when I knew. This wasn't just some neighbor being lazy. This was a man abusing fake authority, treating me like his personal power station. I wasn't about to let this slide. The next morning, I confronted him in broad daylight. He was strutting down the street in that vest labeled HOA cop like it gave him superpowers. I walked right up and said, "Hey, I saw you charging your Tesla off my grid last night. You're stealing power." He didn't even flinch. He smirked, leaned on his sunglasses, and said, "Neighborhood ordinance allows for emergency charging. I'm authorized to draw from community resources." I almost laughed in his face. Community resources? My solar array was built, wired, and paid for by me. It wasn't some public socket. And there sure as hell wasn't a law that allowed an HOA cop, a fake title, by the way, to siphon my electricity. But he didn't stop. Night after night, I caught him sneaking back. Sometimes he'd park his Tesla just far enough down the driveway so he thought I couldn't see him. Other times, he was bold, standing there like a king, daring me to say something. He was draining kilowatts, and every morning my system showed the loss. That's when I decided to make a move. I wasn't going to argue anymore. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to teach him a lesson he'd never forget. If you're enjoying this HOA story so far, like and subscribe because the story is only going to get better. I started by calling the county energy office. They confirmed exactly what I suspected. Under property and utility law, no one could legally connect to my system without my permission. In fact, it counted as theft of services, the same kind of charge as siphoning gasoline or pirating cable. That gave me the green light I needed. So I dug into my equipment. My inverter system allowed for voltage adjustments, something most homeowners never touch. Normally, it's set to deliver steady power, safe for appliances, safe for cars, but I could tweak it just a little. So when someone outside of my system tried to connect without the right grounding, they'd get a surge. Nothing lethal, nothing illegal, but enough to fry electronics if they weren't protected. I rigged a hidden camera facing the outlet just in case he tried to deny it later. Then I sat back, waiting for him to take the bait. Sure enough, the very next night, headlights glowed through my blinds. The Tesla rolled up smooth and silent. He got out, plugged into my outlet like it was his birthright, and leaned back on the hood while power started flowing. What he didn't know was that this time, he was in for a shock. I sat on my porch with the lights off, coffee in hand, watching it all unfold like a late-night movie. The HOA cop thought he was slick, standing there with his chest puffed out while his Tesla quietly sucked power from my grid. At first, everything looked normal. The charging light blinked steady, the screen glowed blue. But then my system kicked into the trap I'd set. A faint hum built up, almost too soft to notice. Within seconds, the Tesla's charging port sparked. The steady blue glow flipped to angry red. He frowned, bent down to check, and that's when it happened. Pop! A flash of white light spat out from the port, followed by a loud crackle. The whole car alarm went berserk, blaring into the still night. "What the?" he yelled, stumbling backward. I couldn't help it. I laughed, loud enough for him to hear. He spun around, eyes blazing. "You did this! You rigged it!" I stood up slowly, calm as ever. "No, I protected what's mine. You've been stealing power for weeks. Now you're just paying the price." He stomped toward me, fists clenched. "I'll have you arrested. You can't sabotage an HOA officer." That line nearly broke me. I chuckled and pulled out my phone. First of all, you're not a real officer. Second, you just admitted to stealing utilities on camera. I tilted my phone, making sure the little red recording light was visible. His face went pale. But instead of backing down, he doubled down. He whipped out his own phone and called Karen, the HOA president. Within 10 minutes, she rolled up in her SUV, stepping out like she owned the whole block. "This is harassment," she shouted the moment her heels hit my driveway. "You can't tamper with a member's vehicle. He was conducting official HOA business." "Official business?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Plugging his car into my private solar grid?" Karen crossed her arms, her voice dripping with smugness. "The HOA has rights to community resources. That includes your property if deemed necessary." That was it. The stupidity was so blatant, I almost pitied them. Almost. I pulled out my second phone, the one I'd used to call the sheriff's department the minute the Tesla alarm went off. Right on cue, a pair of squad cars pulled up, lights flashing red and blue across the yard. The real deputies stepped out, hands on their belts. "We got reports of theft of services and trespassing. Who's the homeowner here?" I raised my hand. "That'd be me." The HOA cop immediately started pointing fingers. "He sabotaged my car. He's the criminal." Karen chimed in, shrill and panicked. "Yes, arrest him at once." But the deputies weren't buying it. I showed them the footage, crystal clear video of him plugging into my outlet, power draining, and then the surge. The deputies watched quietly, nodding. "Looks like theft of utilities," one of them said. "And trespassing, since he entered your property without consent." Karen tried to interrupt, but the deputy shut her down cold. "Ma'am, you're not above the law. HOA rules don't override state law or property rights." By the end of the day, the HOA cop was cited for theft of services and trespassing. Karen, who had defended him, was slapped with an obstruction charge for trying to interfere. As the deputies drove them both away, the Tesla sat silent and dead in my driveway, its battery fried beyond recognition. But the real fireworks came later. I filed a civil lawsuit against the HOA cop for theft of services, calculating every kilowatt he'd stolen. The court awarded me over $50,000 in damages, enough to replace my system twice over. Karen, humiliated and broke, was voted off the board and forced to sell her house at a loss. The fallout didn't stop there. The HOA itself was investigated, stripped of its charter, and shut down for good. As for me, my lights stayed on, my solar grid was mine again, and peace finally returned to the neighborhood. I took one last sip of coffee, smiled at the flashing lights fading into the distance, and thought to myself, this is what happens when HOA bullies forget who really owns the power. So what do you think, folks? Did that HOA cop finally get what he deserved? Or was I too harsh for dragging the entire HOA into it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know where you stand.